hear? You ever notice that the information that we're being fed doesn't always add up to the truth? Do you ever look out your window at night when the rain's falling down? You ever look down the street and wonder what is going on around you? You ever look out at night and ask yourself, is this all that I am? Where am I? What am I? Is this all there is? Is this real life? As technology continues to bring us closer together, it also tears us further apart. We watch the skies and look at the planet around us and its natural beauty as it continues to march forward on and on and on, unending, unceasing, unwavering. And yet our world, everything that we've built, crumbles around us. We wonder, is this it? Is there more? There's gotta be. We can search, we want to learn, we want to understand, we want to see all that we can see, know that all that we can know. We want to look out there, we want to peek behind the veil, we want to ask the questions that nobody will answer. We want to light those fires, the sparks that ignite a curiosity in us. And we ask ourselves, what is out beyond all of that, beyond the edge of reality? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. How y'all doing? It's Kaiser, and well, here we are. It's another day. It's another it's another what the F is going on? Because it's time for the NASA UAP report. For those of you who may have followed earlier on, whenever I covered the UAP report with, Congress, or the congressional hearing a while back, and say that was definitely a bit odd. And that was one of those that I really, really was looking forward to looking at. And there was a lot of really interesting information that came through. And by God, I tell you what, there was a lot of interesting things going on. But of course, the first time I saw the original NASA UAP, kind of their beginning to the report, honest to God, I was surprised that they were doing it, for one, but then I saw exactly what was happening, and they used it as an opportunity to pretty much crap all over everything that was in the UAP realm. And this was even before they said they were going to be delivering the final report. They said it was going to take a while. And, well, now here we are. We're at the day of. And it's time to find out what's going to happen. But I've got an inkling. I know where this is going to go. And first and foremost today, I want to say a very special thank you to Xcomer Triple Z. And I say, did not know you got monetized. Congrats. Thanks, Xcomer. And thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, buddy. Yeah, so yesterday we covered the Mexican UAP congressional hearing, which, as I have dug up, and now it's starting to more widely get circulation, that, yeah, it's a hoax. It was actually done with Mexico's real Congress. This was supposed to be legitimate, but they picked a guy to run this who is a known grifter, and basically, as I mentioned yesterday, he's basically the Stephen Greer of Mexico. And boy, Stephen Greer is worth his own show, but yeah, that it's just because he's a giant liar. I mean, it's awful. Anyway, so let me go around real quick, say hello to everybody. So, Mrs. K. Griff, what's up, my fellow fake aliens? Alan Walsh, what's up, brother? And we've got, let's see here, Rose. Hey, how you doing there, Rose? Good to see you. Libby, how you doing, buddy? And let's see here. And of course, as we mentioned, Xcomer's dropping in. Murph's Turf, there you are. I say Murph is kind of the hero of the show, getting all kinds of links to me before I actually have a chance to find them. So definitely give Murph a awesome shout out and a thank you for providing some really cool stuff for us today to go over before the stream gets started over at NASA. So I do have the stream up here on my big screen. I'm just waiting for it to get going. Should start about 10 a.m. So we've got about another 7 minutes at least before that starts. But let's go ahead and get things rolling. I mean, I have to really kind of speed things along this morning. So I do want to go ahead and present this. So let me see here. Share screen. Okay, here we go. So Murph was able to provide this to me this morning, and this is extremely helpful. This is actually the actual report directly from NASA, and it's got a lot of information on supposed UAPs, things that they've have allegedly studied. I'm surprised at how short it is, but then again, I'm not all that surprised. So, yeah, it's total of 34 pages, and 2 of those pages are cover pages. So, 2 cover pages and a table of contents, and then that means about 30 pages of actual stuff. All right. So, let me go ahead and get to this here. So, let's read this section right here. This is the overall conclusions and recommendations by NASA. So this is going to be kind of the compartmentalization of everything that they're talking about. Let me see if I can full screen this. Okay. Center that a little bit better. There we go. All right. And here's my prediction, because I have not read this yet, but my prediction is they're going to use this as a giant opportunity to basically say, hey, we actually don't believe that this is a thing, and this is all a bunch of, this is all just a bunch of hoopla. No, it's not real, but give us more money anyway. So anyway, that's what their first report hearing was. So let's read it. We recommend that NASA play a prominent role in the whole of government effort to understand UAP by leveraging its extensive expertise to contribute to a comprehensive evidence-based approach that is rooted in scientific method. We specifically recommend that NASA utilize its existing and planned Earth-observing assets to probe the local environmental conditions associated with UAP that are initially detected by other means. In doing so, NASA can directly probe, boy, they love their probing, whether certain environmental factors are coincident with the known UAP. We further recommend that NASA explore enhancing collaborations with the U.S. commercial remote sensing industry, which offer powerful constellations of high-resolution Earth-observing satellites. At present, the detection of UAP is often serendipitous, captured by sensors that were not designed or calibrated for this purpose and which lack comprehensive metadata. Let's say, to quote good old Aussie overlord, metadata. Coupled with incomplete data, archiving, and curation, this means that the origin of numerous UAP remain uncertain. The importance of detecting UAP with multiple well-calibrated sensors is thus paramount, and accordingly, we recommend that NASA leverage its considerable expertise in the domain of potentially utilize multispectral or hyperspectral data as part of a rigorous data acquisition campaign. In turn, the panel finds that the sophisticated data analysis techniques, including artificial intelligence and machine learning, must be used in a comprehensive UAP detection campaign, which, coupled with systematic data gathering and robust curation, here we recommend that NASA's expertise in these key areas be contributed as the whole of government UAP effort. Sure, The panel finds that public engagement in the effort to better understand UAP will be vital. NASA, by leading and lending its name to UAP studies is already helping to reduce stigma association with reporting. Beyond this, we're recommending that NASA explore the viability of developing or acquiring a crowdsourcing system, of course, such as open source smartphone based apps to gather imaging data and other smartphone sensor data from multiple citizen observers as part of a wider effort to more systematically gather public UAP reports. Oh, so they want to actually get NASA apparently wants access to your phones and all of your data, and to be able to access your cameras whenever they want. Sure. Lastly, we recommend that the Aviation Safety Reporting System, ASRS, for commercial pilot UAP reporting be better leveraged, providing a critical database for the whole of government. They keep using that whole of government thing, effort to understand UAP. The agency's long history of partnership with the FAA should also be capitalized to investigate how advanced real-time analysis techniques could be applied to future generations of air traffic management ATM systems. In conclusion, NASA is uniquely positioned to contribute to a robust and systematic approach to studying UAP, furthering its mission of scientific knowledge, technical expertise, and exploration when considering the above recommendations and according to budget priorities. NASA should leverage its core capabilities and expertise to determine whether it should take a leading role supporting in the implementation or implementing a given recommendation. The positioning of NASA's role should further be situated within the context of a broader whole of government approach to understanding UAP. So they use that whole of government term 4 separate times. So in other words, they basically want all the different organizations and 3-letter agencies and 4-letter agencies to be studying this all together. Oh, boy, I knew this was going to be infuriating, but goddamn. Yeah. Let me go ahead and start looking at the chat here and get back to where we're at. So, hey, Shenny, how you doing? Still in bed, but here listening. Awesome. And Mighty Meat, hell nah, another funding grift. Exactly. It's exactly what I knew this was going to be. It's going to be another funding grift. It's what they always do. And Alan Walsh says, I'm heading back over to Vices. Have a great show, Kaiser. I'll catch the replay. Awesome. Thank you so much. And say, yep, they will never let it die. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Spaceships go zoom. Mighty says, rockets go boom. System Micah Sassafras. Yeah. Xcomer says Russia, India, and China are going heavy into space. Maybe NASA is so desperate for funding to compete with them. Why all this disclosure? Disclosure? To sway the public? I don't know. Murph's Turf says, we do the science, so give us money. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. It's another funding grift, the same as they did the last time. Yeah. Good old NASA. They're gonna do exactly what they always do every single time. I know I should probably not be surprised with that. And I'm not really surprised with that, to be completely honest. But hey, there it is. All right, folks. Looks like the show is getting started. So let's go ahead and get the stream going there. And I'm going to do this little loop. And
Administrator. Nikki Fox, the Associate Administrator. Dan Evans, the Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for Research within the Science Mission Directorate, and David Spergel, who is the president of the Simons Foundation and was also the chair of this particular independent study team. I will ask everybody in the room to please silence your cell phones. We will get started with everybody giving a few opening remarks, and then we will take questions. We will take questions both in the room and then from the phones. And for now, I will hand it over to the administrator.
Thanks so much, and thanks for coming today. NASA searches for the unknown in air and space. It's in our DNA. From digging on Mars with the Perseverance rover in those little titanium tubes that we intend to go back and pick up, digging in a dry lake bed near the mouth of a river. Now we're going up to the top
Adjusting a
of
few
the
things
cliff
for my own ears.
where the scientists feel that there could be the best examples of if there were life there millions of years ago. Whether we're dealing with Perseverance or the James Webb Space Telescope, which searches for exoplanets with signs of habitability, we are looking for signs of life, past and present. And it's in our DNA to explore and to ask why things are the way they are. In June of last year, NASA commissioned an independent study team to examine unidentified anomalous phenomena. We did so with a few goals in mind. First, to examine how NASA can use our expertise and instruments to study UAP from a scientific perspective. Second, shift the conversation about UAP from sensationalism to science. And to make sure that whatever we find or whatever we recommend, to make sure that information is shared transparently around the world. There's a global fascination with UAP. On my travels, one of the first questions I often get is about these sightings. And much of that fascination is due to the unknown nature of it. Think about it. Most UAP sightings result in very limited data. That makes it even more difficult to draw scientific conclusions about the nature of UAP. And so this independent study team brought together some of the world's leading scientists, data, and artificial intelligence experts, aerospace safety specialists, all with a specific charge from me, which is to tell how to apply the full focus of science and data to UAP. And this is the first time that NASA has taken concrete action to seriously look into UAP. And this independent study team was just that, independent. Now, NASA has a statutory authority to look for life in the universe. And when you think of the universe, and especially what we have learned from the James Webb Space Telescope, how vast that it is. We knew before, and it was a NASA scientist, Dr. John Mather, who got the Nobel that determined that the universe was 13.8 billion years old. And over the years, particularly accelerated in the last century, we have an understanding that, of course, ours is not the only galaxy. And there are billions and billions of galaxies, and each of those galaxies, including our own, have billions and billions of stars. And with the James Webb looking at the exoplanets, we are now beginning to discover, and somewhere out there, we will discover another medium-sized stony planet around a medium-sized sun or star at just the right distance, not too far, not too close, with a tilt in its axis that rotates, that has carbon, that will have a habitable atmosphere. If you ask me, do I believe there's life in a universe that is so vast that it's hard for me to comprehend how big it is? My personal answer is yes. But I asked some of our scientists. As a matter of fact, the Washington Post editorial board asked us to come down to the question, what is the mathematical probability that there is life out there in the universe? And if you calculate in billions of stars, in billions of
Get to the point,
galaxies,
Gramps.
that there's replicated what I just said, another stony planet. The answer was, what's the likelihood? At least 1 trillion. That's from our scientist. So we start this without any preconceived notions, but understanding that we're in a world of discovery. And we, NASA, have taken for the first time concrete action to seriously look into UAP. And this independent study team is exactly that. It's independent. They work to develop recommendations about how NASA could better examine them from a scientific perspective. And the top takeaway from the study is that there is a lot more to learn. The NASA independent study team did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin. But we don't know what these UAP are. That's why I'm announcing that NASA has appointed a NASA director of UAP research. They are being tasked with developing and overseeing the implementation of NASA's vision for UAP research.
Oh, NASA's vision.
We will use NASA's expertise to work with other
something.
agencies to analyze UAP. We will use AI and machine learning to search the skies for anomalies,
Damn it, more
as we have been searching the heavens.
AI. Really great. That's what we need.
And we'll continue to search the heavens for habitability.
Sure.
And NASA will do this transparently. So while today is a significant step for NASA, it's certainly not our final step. And we're going to share more with you, and I want to introduce you to Dr. Nikki Fox, who is the head of our Science Mission Directorate. Nikki.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Administrator Nelson. It's always tough to follow Bill. He's such a great speaker. But I want to thank the independent study team for their amazing service on the study and for their continued contributions towards the advancement of our nation's understanding of unidentified anomalous phenomena.
I have an
UAP,
accent.
as Bill
Give me
just
more money,
eloquently
because I
said,
have an
UAP
accent.
are one of our planet's greatest mysteries. And it's really due to the limited number of high-quality data that surrounds such incidents and often renders them unidentifiable. While there are numerous eyewitness accounts and visuals associated with UAP, they're not consistent, they're not detailed, and they're not curated observations that can be used to make definitive scientific conclusions about the nature and the origin of UAP. The language of scientists is data, and data points towards a scientific conclusion to what the nature and the origin of UAP could be. That leads us to why we're here today. The independent study team's report is now public, and it can be found at science.nasa.gov/UAP. While NASA is still working to evaluate the report and to assess the independent study team's findings and recommendations, NASA is committed to immediately contributing to the federal government's unified UAP effort. And as you heard, we have appointed a director of UAP research. In their role, they will centralize communications, resources, and data analytical capabilities across the federal government to establish a robust database for the evaluation of any future data. Additionally, our Director of UAP Research will also leverage NASA's expertise in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and space-based observation tools that will support and enhance the broader government initiative into UAP. They will serve as NASA's point of contact for government entities, but especially for the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. And this will ensure our coordinated
government
efforts and effective communication channels. Beyond our Director of UAP Research, NASA will also advance citizen reporting by working with the public and commercial pilots to collect a broader set of data to add to the vast data repositories to not only contribute to a broader, more reliable data set for future UAP incidents, but to also contribute to the destigmatization of the important study of UAPs. And with that,
I appreciate
it
that,
is my
Libby.
great
I would
pleasure
be a much
to
better
hand over to
position
Dr. Dan
than that one.
Evans, who is the NASA official
laughable.
responsible for supporting this amazing study.
Hey, Stingy. Yeah, I wish.
Good morning.
Who says the
I'd
lizard
like
people
to
are...
begin by expressing my sincere thanks to NASA Administrator Bill Nelson for directing this study. We at NASA believe that understanding UAP is vital for several reasons. First and foremost, it provides an opportunity for us to expand our understanding of the world around us. At
I have an
NASA,
accent.
we are committed to charting the uncharted, so this work aligns with who we are. Secondly,
Isn't that real life,
this study
Miss K. Griff?
aims to
Aren't they
enhance
all
situational
reptiles wearing
awareness.
skin suits here?
The presence of UAP raises serious concerns about the safety of our skies, and it's this nation's obligation to determine whether these phenomena pose any potential risks to airspace safety. Let's not forget that the first A in NASA is aeronautics. So by understanding the nature of UAP, we can ensure that our skies remain a safe space for all. Administrator Nelson directed us to put together an independent and external team of world-leading experts to produce a report containing a roadmap with a series of recommendations that describe how NASA could best help in the cross-government response to UAP. Months of meticulous fact-finding, cross-disciplinary collaboration, and scientific rigor gave the team insights that will greatly enhance our nation's understanding of UAP going forward.
You are fake news.
The team's report, now available on NASA's website, stands as a testament to NASA's and the team's commitment to transparency, to the power of science,
Wrong.
and to the unwavering quest for knowledge. We at NASA believe that studying UAP represents an exciting step forward in our journey to uncover the mysteries of the world around us. By embracing a scientific lens, we have ensured that our work is evidence-based and data-driven. And by valuing transparency and openness, we have aimed to foster trust and collaboration with the public. I'd like to conclude by extending my deepest gratitude to the team for their incredible dedication and service. Their efforts have been instrumental, and I truly appreciate the expertise and commitment that each of them have brought to this endeavor. And with that, I'll pass over to Dr. David Spergel, who chaired our study.
That was a little too perfectly timed, don't you think?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to the NASA Administrator for entrusting us with this pivotal study. Your
swear
faith
that
in
was
our
not-
capabilities has been a
This is all
driving
happening
force
live. I don't
behind the
actually
panel's
know what the
approach.
timing was. That was
The
perfect.
panel's comprehensive study into unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, has led to several crucial findings, and I'd like to elucidate on our methodology and those findings this morning. We began by rigorously assessing the current state of UAP data. Our goal was not to repeat the work of the AARO, but to understand the nature of the reports. Our goal was to produce a roadmap for NASA to contribute to the understanding of the nature of UAP events. We looked at NASA's assets. While they provide a comprehensive picture of the ocean, the Earth's surface and atmosphere for studying our evolving planet, they typically do not have the resolution needed for UAP events. However, by providing data on environmental conditions, they can complement
his
other data on
tie
UAP.
knot is awful. It's
The current
off-center,
approach to UAP data
chunky, it's not
collection
done well.
has led to a limited sample of events and
I
limited
can do a tie
data.
better than that, dude.
Stigma has limited reporting by pilots, both civilian and military, so we know there's missing data. For its analysis in other areas, NASA always takes a scientific approach of systematic data collection that involves calibrating instruments, multiple measurements, and ensuring sensor metadata. Most UAP events lack this quality of data. One of NASA's contribution to the broader governmental effort to bring these methodologies to create a data set is to bring these methodologies to create a data set that's both reliable and extensive. And once we have a large sample of well-characterized events, AI and ML tools, which are proving to be powerful in so many other applications, will likely prove helpful in identifying interesting anomalies. It is essential to clarify, based on our current findings and methodology,
Every time they
that we
talk about
find
AI,
no
I
evidence
really need to have like the
suggest that
Terminator.
UAP are extraterrestrial in origin. Our focus in understanding the phenomenon, however, regardless of the source, and previous work from the AARO has shown that most events are explainable as planes, balloons, drones, weather phenomena, and instrument features. And in any search for interesting anomalies, the first step is to eliminate the chaff of conventional events before moving on to identify novel phenomena. In this, the public's role cannot be overstated. The panel envisioned a framework that leverages crowdsourcing, possibly via smartphone applications, to capture a broader spectrum of data, ensuring more
All about them
eyes
spectrums in
and
the government,
ears on
aren't
the
you?
ground. Lastly, we delved into the safety concerns UAP present within U.S. airspace. By integrating UAP collection within our current aviation reporting system, the panel believes we can provide insights into potential safety risks. NASA can reduce the stigma associated with pilots reporting anomalies, and fundamentally, by studying events we don't understand, we advance our understanding. So in conclusion, with a rigorous methodology, collaborative efforts, public engagement, NASA can be a key player in the whole of government approach to understanding UAP. Thank you.
That was nothing.
Thank you
There's
so much
literally
to all
nothing
of our
said.
speakers. We will start taking questions. For those in the room, we have a microphone over here that we would ask you to speak into. We will
Boy,
also
that
be
was
alternating
fast.
with questions from those on the phone line. For those of you who are in the phone line, please press *1 to get onto the queue. We will try to answer as many as we can today. We'll see how it goes.
Stand up,
Please,
dumbass.
Thank you very much. This is directed to Mr. Nelson. Thank you for being here.
Oh, that's James
Two
Fox.
quick questions. One is,
Yes!
how can we make the determination of what something isn't when we don't know what it is? And B,
Fuck yeah.
after a careful review of the data,
I love James
if it's
Fox.
determined that some, underline the word some 10 times, UFOs or UAP originate from a non-human intelligence, what's the plan to disclose that to the public?
And can you identify yourself, please?
James Fox,
I'm sorry, and what outlet?
independent media. Thank you.
James
let me
Fox knows his
repeat.
stuff. He's a documentarian. He's been
It's on.
covering this for years.
Let
He's
me
got several
repeat
documentaries,
what
ones
I
that I've
said.
told you guys to go check out. The Phenomenon,
I think
Moment
it's
of
important
Contact,
that you hear this
Yeah,
word.
so many others. Go check him out.
The NASA independent study team did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin. But we don't know what these UAP are. The mission of NASA is to find out the unknown. I've said several times in my comments here today that we, NASA, deal openly and we will be transparent on this. And we're trying to address the question of there's so much concern that there's something locked up, classified, and that the American government is not being open. Well, we are the American government, and we are open, and we're going to be open about this. We don't, again, I'm going to repeat that statement, but we don't know what these UAP are, but we're going to try to find out.
Thank you very much. And is there a plan in place if it is determined that some of them represent or originate from a non-human intelligence to tell the public? Is there a plan or?
If we are what I said we intend to be, which is transparent, you bet your boots. We will say that. And I've tried to set the table for you by telling you what I personally believe in a universe that is so vast that could there be a replication of life on Earth elsewhere in another solar system that is so big? Of course I believe that. The distances, it would have to be a very advanced civilization. The distances, light years, hundreds of light years, billions of light years. But whatever we find, we're going to tell you.
Thank you very much.
Great, and we'll move on to the next question. Please do identify yourself.
Thanks. This is Joey Roulette from Reuters. Question for Bill Nelson or any of the other panelists. So you've appointed a director of UAP research. Have you named someone to that role? And what kind of investment are you considering making in this? Is this going to be a new program office? Have you thought of funding figures, et cetera? Thanks.
Yes, we have. We've already appointed the person. They've been working there for a while now, like during this study, to help be a point of contact. And we're any budget.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mrs. Gabriel.
Very
awesome.
Part of a very intricate federal budget request, and so they're not something that we discuss openly. But we will certainly look at what resources need to be allocated.
And can you name the official who's in
We
that
will
role?
not give his name out now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We'll take another one from in the room.
Hello, Dan Rivers from British broadcaster ITV News. I heard the word stigma mentioned several times, that you want to remove the stigma. Is your message to pilots and other people that this is no longer the preserve of cranks and that you won't be laughed at and that you will take them seriously? Is that the takeaway?
That is exactly the message. I mean, at NASA, we're scientists. We love data. We love all data. And if there is something that needs to be reported, and we want people to be able to feel that they can report that. We spoke in the open hearing that we had here just a few months ago. Dan, remind me when it was?
May 31st.
May 31st. And we actually talked then about we wanted to remove the stigma, and we also did not tolerate any of the abuse that some of our members of the panel were receiving, particularly on social media, for doing this really important scientific study. So absolutely, we want pilots and both, as Bill said, both private pilots, commercial pilots, military pilots, to feel that if they see something, they need to report it.
I want to say,
Okay.
I want to repeat the way I said it. We want to shift the conversation about UAPs from sensationalism to science.
When has
I
it been
think of
about
this in terms
sensationalism?
of the signs we see around for security, which say, if you see something, say something. I think in this context, we would summarize it as, if you see something, collect high-quality data on it, because then we can learn.
If I may, I just noticed in the report the Go Fast incident was one that was picked out, and that had
Yep.
been
We're going to talk about that.
held up as an example of a very credible sighting that you seem to be pouring doubt on. Can you just talk to that?
I mean, we looked at that as one example, and I think this is something that AARO has actually done a very good job of going through the events. And most events are going to turn out, even if there are some events that in the end turn out to be something novel. Most events are going to turn out to be conventional things, balloons, airplanes, and so on. I think of the process of discovery of anomalies as looking for a needle in a haystack. And if you want to find a needle in a haystack, you've got two choices. Either you know exactly what the needle looks like, and you design a very good filter to look for the needle. It's called match filtering in sort of AI work, machine learning.
Or you get a fucking magnet.
Or you don't know what you're looking for. And with anomalies, that's really the case we're in. We're looking for things we don't understand. So if you want to find something strange in a haystack, you better know exactly what hay looks like. And you better be able to characterize
If you want to know
that really
how to find a needle in a haystack,
and
you got to
that's
know what
why
hay
in a
looks like?
process
What?
this, and this is something that
What?
I think we bring to this as we look for anomalies is you need to know what typical regular things look like under all conditions. You need to know what balloons look like when pilots see them, so under unusual conditions, so that you can eliminate those events. And that's why in identifying anomalies, understanding the normal is a very important part of it, and understanding that under different observing conditions, and collecting data in a uniform way. I mean, this is what we do when we study anomalies in space science or other areas of science.
You are
What we're
fake
trying to do
news.
is bring this approach to this field by saying collect high quality data.
Yeah, it's verbal
understand
diarrhea.
the normal
It is a
events,
gargle
and
of
that's how we
bowels.
move things forward.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next question, please.
Literally said
Hello,
nothing.
I'm Nomia Iqbal from BBC News. Just to follow up on the stigma question, UAP, that term has been used in part to destigmatize UFOs. The fact is most people use UFOs. Most of the American public, most of the world use that term. So I wonder how much is the stigma still a problem for you, and what are you practically doing to about it, really, to convince people? And my second very quick question. In your report, I noticed that you said AI is a very essential tool for identifying rare occurrences. Yesterday, we were at this big AI summit where you had 100 senators meeting all the big tech tycoons, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, this ought to be good.
And speaking to some senators afterwards, they said, we are concerned about AI, we need it to be regulated. Does that concern you? Are you worried that it might hamper your work? Thank you very much.
Well, two
That's
big
important
questions.
to ask.
First of all, do I personally believe that AI needs to have some boundaries? The answer to that for our existentialism, yes.
Sir, do you even know what
Can you
AI
do
stands
that
for?
within the appropriate bounds so that, as I said in my remarks, that we're going to utilize AI as one of the tools as we search for what is an answer to the UAP.
I have spoken!
So no, I don't think that any attempts that the Congress has underway to try to write a law that
Oh, yeah,
would
100%.
appropriately put
People asking questions
guardrails
actually are interested in this
around
topic.
AI
These people don't
for
know
other
jack.
reasons is in any way going to inhibit us from utilizing the tools of
Do you know
AI
what's Skynet?
to
'Cause
help
that's how you get
us
Skynet.
in our quest on this specific issue. Now, what was your other question?
Intelligence is artificial.
Just how do you
Burn.
destigmatize the whole thing? Because I know you call it UAPs, but people don't refer it to in that way.
Yeah. Well, there's a mindset. We all are entertained by Indiana Jones in
for
the Amazon
fuck's sake.
and finding the crystal skull. So there's a lot of folklore out there. That's why we entered the stage, the arena, to try to get into this from a science point.
I think you can blame the X-Files for a lot of this as well.
That possibly too, but just remember what I said. We NASA are trying to shift it from sensationalism to science.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
And we do have a long line in the room, but I want to give a couple chances to some people on the phone line. So I'm going to go to the phone for our first question there. Please do introduce yourself and ask your question.
Please tell me one of them is George Knapp or Jeremy Corbell.
The phone, can you hear me?
Our first question is from Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press. Your line is open.
Yes, hi, Marcia Dunn, AP. I'm already receiving emails on Area 51 in Roswell, so I would like to ask Mr. Spergel, how much were you and your fellow panel members hassled or bombarded by this sort of thing during the course of your study? And for NASA, are you not naming the director of UAP research for this very reason, so that they're not hassled and bombarded by the fringe element? Thanks.
Oh, God. The fringe element. Oh, there we go. There's a plant.
Kind of emails and tweets into two types, right? There's some where people
Talking to your mic, dumbass.
honestly are curious about things they've seen, they've heard. You know, there are things that are hard to respond to, like my uncle who's dead saw something strange, and you get a report. And you know, that's not useful, but that's harmless. On the other hand, one of the things that happened during the study, and this may be part of a bigger discussion of cultural behavior on social media, where people behave badly, and I would say harassed some of our panel members, and that I think was very inappropriate behavior one doesn't want to see. Sadly, I think it's part of a deeper problem when people somehow feel on the web, on social media, they can be nasty and hostile, and sadly, some of our panel members experience that.
Yeah, I would just simply add to that to say that not only were some of the things that our panel members received during the course of this study simple trolling, some of them actually rose to actual threats. And as a result, we at NASA take the sanctity of the scientific process.
You gonna produce any examples there, buddy?
Security and safety
of
our team extremely seriously. And yes, that's in part why we are not splashing the name of our new director out there, because science needs to be free. Science needs to undergo a real and rigorous and rational process, and you need the freedom of thought to be able to do that. Some of the threats and the harassment have been beyond the pale, quite frankly, towards some of our panelists. And yes, it's important that science be free as part of that process.
Thank you so much. We will go to another question on the phone, please. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Our next question comes from Tom Clark with Sky News London. Your line is open.
Oh, hi there. Thank you very much for taking my question. I want to understand how much, you won't give us an idea of money, but how many assets or new research programs will be devoted to this by the administration. Because it strikes me that although the argument for aviation safety is clear, there are other departments and agencies responsible for that particular thing. And as the report concludes, the likelihood of there being extraterrestrial explanations or truly scientific explanations for many of these phenomena is very, very small. Shouldn't NASA devote its research budgets and its efforts to those much more likely and tangible signs of extraterrestrial life through things like the James Webb Space Telescope or extrasolar planets detection?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So yes, obviously we don't discuss budget openly, but
Every
we
time I
are
hear that, it
committed
just, like, drives
to
me nuts.
supporting the
Start
whole of government
something by saying,
study into UAP. All of our data
Learn to
are
speak.
open. In fact, if you look at the report, you'll see a very large sort of background material or supplemental material in there, because we literally released everything, because that's what we do at NASA. We do have our key agency goals. We have obviously our goals in the Science Mission Directorate, our themes that we follow, and one of those, as the administrator described, is the search for life elsewhere. And we do that, and he described the research beautifully. I think he may be going for my job, actually, but he described the research so
I'm sure
well
he could do it better.
that what we need to find is a rocky planet around a hospitable star that isn't too violent, that is in
Thanks
just
for
that
listening,
right
Bobby.
place, that has signatures of water and signatures of carbon, so the building blocks of life. And we continue to strive to do that. We do that with the James Webb Telescope. We'll be doing that when we launch the Nancy Grace Roman Telescope.
angle grinder in my
that
eardrum.
even has a coronagraph around it to block out the light of the neighboring stars and really let us look at those possible planets. And then beyond that, the next big telescope recommended by the Astrophysics Decadal is the Habitable Worlds Observatory, actually a mission designed to look for hospitable and find like Earth 2.0 in another stellar system. And so they really are in the forefront of our goals at NASA. So thanks so much for the question.
I'm going to ask.
Give me more money so I can build more telescopes.
Something. Will you be devoting any new resource or research projects to this particular aim then, given that's where the interesting questions really are? Should we spend
Nope, it's
should
just
NASA
word
spend,
salad.
Time and budget pursuing the much less likely task of finding signs of extraterrestrial life in small objects within or close to the Earth's atmosphere?
So, I mean, most of obviously our instruments are designed to look for the phenomena that we study at NASA. If any of our data are useful, if any of our data are applicable, then we absolutely will be devoting that and turning that over through our liaison to the whole of government approach. We are not at this time intending to design a mission to do this. That is not part of our kind of overarching NASA direction. We are looking at providing some research support. So if somebody wants to write a research proposal, send it in through the regular channels. We will be looking for ways to do that. And we also talked about supporting sort of the citizen science and the broader repository of data. Dan, do you want to add to that?
NASA's data are free and publicly accessible for the entire world to download. And we pride ourselves on that fact.
Bullshit.
And it's this openness
Bullshit.
of data and our approach, which is why we're all here today. To answer your specific question about devoting research budgets to the potentially truly interesting ones, well, I think as David said, you have to understand the chaff in order to really understand and pinpoint the potentially interesting ones, okay? So we are in such a data poor regime at the moment that we need to turn it into a data rich one to do that. And we employ NASA's assets, many other partners' assets as well in that quest.
And
It's all about
if
the
your
Benjamins.
question suggests, and I do
Yep.
not know that it does, but if it suggests that NASA ought to keep its nose out of this, well, let me tell you, NASA is not a place that's going to hide its head in the sand.
So they want us to do their
now,
work for them for free. Actually, we are paying
Is there
them.
interest
us
in this phenomenon
to work
in
for them.
other agencies?
Yep.
In my previous
Government
life
in a
the
nutshell.
Senate, I was privy to talk to the Navy pilots and to see the video of what they encountered off the coast of California in 2004.
Oh, the
That was
Nemesis
in a
incident.
classified setting then. But this is now. And you have now seen that video. And you have heard from those former Navy pilots.
He's talking about
Is that of
U.S.
a
Navy
concern
pilot
to
Commander,
the Department
Lieutenant
of
Commander
Defense?
David
Of course
Foreman.
it is. And therefore, we're going to continue
Commander
our
David Draper.
search from a scientific point of view. It's going to be, if those other agencies continued their search, we're going to be glad to join in with them. But our stuff is going to be open.
Great. I'm going to take one more from the phone before we go back
yeah,
to the
I'm sure
floor.
you're open.
I will. We have a
Really,
lot of
really
questions.
open.
I'm going to hope we can stick to sort of one per person and see how many we can get through. So one more from the phone, please.
Our next question comes from Jeff Faust with Space News. Your line is open.
Hi. I know the press release states that NASA is still evaluating the independent study team's report and its recommendations. Does NASA plan to publish a formal response to the report and its recommendations? And if so, what timeline can we expect to see that?
So let me give you a quick preview about how this works. So we have only very, very recently received the report, and what you have seen today in our press release represents our initial actions in recognition of the urgency of this matter. And yes, we will be following up as appropriate with additional actions, suggest the recommendations and act on them in light of budget and many other priorities. But we'll be announcing more in the future.
Great. Thank you. Please, back to the room. Identify yourself too, please.
Good morning. Sam Cabral with BBC News Digital. We've been talking a lot about shift from sensationalism to science today. Has NASA been in touch with the Mexican authorities about the rather sensational revelations earlier this week of two allegedly non-human corpses? And what, if any, importance do you attach to these discoveries?
I think David had a prep for that one.
Well,
Oh,
this
good.
is
He
something
prepped for that one. Good for him.
I know I've only seen on Twitter, so it's when you have unusual things, you want to make data public. I think of this as like NASA has one of the most valuable samples from outer space, lunar rocks. What do?
Yeah,
we make them available to any scientists who want to work on this.
I think
we don't know.
I think that was a slip. I don't think he was supposed to say that.
Ooh, whoopsie.
If I was the Mexican government, I would are making recommendations to the Mexican government. That's not our charge here. We're doing this for NASA. My recommendation was, if you have something strange, make samples available to the world scientific community, and we'll see what's there.
I'll just add that one of the main goals of what we're trying to do here today is to move conjecture and conspiracy towards science and sanity, and you do that with data, as David says. And that's the whole purpose of this study and this roadmap.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, they prepped for these questions?
Hi,
Really?
Brandy Vincent from Defense Scoop. Thank you all for doing this.
I wish I
actually have
could.
two
They're
lines
Levy,
of
but I don't know
questions,
the
if it's
number.
okay.
And
First for Ms. Fox.
They pre-select
What's
everybody
the
out of
timeline
there.
and immediate actions that NASA is pursuing specifically with AARO now that the report has been completed? And what mechanisms are NASA
Get new glasses,
and DoD
lady.
really
The
using to
Jeffrey
share
Dahmer look is not for
information
you.
and collaborate securely? And do you see more coming? And then separately, for Mr. Spergel, I noticed in the final report a lot of the images and media that were added were from DoD, snapshots that we'd previously seen from DoD data. Not much from FAA, if anything, not from other agencies. Can you speak to why that is and what all you used beyond DoD to inform your report?
Dr. Fox, Dr. Spergel, I'll pass it to you guys.
Sure. So, yes, our immediate actions, I think there was such a lot in those questions. So the immediate actions, we've established our director of UAP research. They're working across the whole of government. They're working very closely with AARO.
Whole of government,
they are the
again.
Sort of central point for all
just
of the
mentioned it
collaboration. I'm not
Four
sure what
times
else
in
you
the-
asked,
in
I'm
the,
sorry.
What mechanisms
paper
are you
copy of the
using to
report, and they
share
just
data
mentioned
and
here now.
information with the Defense Department?
All mechanisms available to us. As Dan eloquently said, all of our data are open and public. So actually, I mean, we share everything with everybody.
Bullshit.
So everybody can access our NASA data.
I mean, do you have like a specific repository or mechanism or channel specifically with DoD where you're sharing information? Can you just expand a little on how AARO and DoD are working AARO and NASA are working so deeply to share things?
Sure. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to handle that. So as Nikki beautifully said, All of NASA's data is open and accessible to the public. If DoD on a specific instance need to tap our expertise, then there are obviously secure ways of doing that, and we've done that by appointing our liaison officer. And yes, we know how to talk to DoD in a classified space. But again, most of what we do is unclassified, and for good reason.
Yeah, the Jeffrey Dahmer look does not look good on her. I don't like the Dahmer glasses.
AARO is the lead agency in the government. So FAA reported events go to AARO. So they're the central collection agency, and that actually, if you go to the AARO site, they have a pretty complete list of things they've analyzed and
You are fake news.
Are trying to make public. Though with AARO, and this is just something I think is worth repeating in the context of looking at images that come from military satellites and intelligence community. It's important to remember that images taken by military instruments are classified, not because of what's in the image, but because of the nature of the measuring instrument. And I think this is one of the unique things that NASA brings here, is NASA is about openness and transparency. When NASA makes measurements, NASA has across all of it does, this program of making its data open and available. And of course, because it's not making measurements with classified instruments, that enables it to do this. And that one of the things that NASA brings to this space.
Thank you. And just a really quick clarification, because I think it's important. The NASA AARO liaison, is that official the same as your new UAP head of research?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, one more in the room before we go back to the phones for a couple.
Thank you. My name is Jacob Jensen. I work for a Danish newspaper called Berlingske. My question is for Mr. Nelson. You said at the beginning of the meeting that that NASA will be transparent. Well, a month and a half ago, Mr. David Grush said under oath in Congress that the U.S. government is in possession of UAPs and extraterrestrial life. How can you be sure at NASA that other parts of the U.S. government is being transparent?
I don't speak for the but I can tell you NASA, which I speak for, is open and transparent with our data.
Do you believe what Mr. David Grush said, or is he lying?
You would want me to give a personal opinion?
Yes, please.
Of what he said.
Please.
What he said, if I recall having seen this on the nightly news, was that he had a friend that knew where a warehouse was that had an UFO locked up in a warehouse. He also said he had another friend that said that he had parts.
These are people that have professionally come to David Grush, by the way.
Whatever he said, where's the evidence?
But he also,
my response.
Excuse me. He also said that
he has to go through.
Did interview over 40 employees at the Pentagon.
Thank you.
Long time ago, there was a TV show, Jack Friday, and he used to say, just the facts, just the facts. Show me the evidence.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we will go to the phones. Again, I know people have lots of questions, but I'm going to try to keep us to just to one for each person. And so next person on the phone, go ahead and introduce yourself.
The next question comes from Gina Cesari with ABC News. Your line is open.
This is for Senator Nelson. Your report mentioned that AI could be very useful in helping in this investigation. How do you see that, sir?
Well, why limit us in anything in interpretation of data?
And Gary Cooper.
And AI is just coming on the scene to be explored in all areas. So why should we limit any technological tool in analyzing data that we have? I said AI was one of the things that we were going to employ.
I mean, we use AI or artificial intelligence and machine learning throughout our NASA science portfolio. It is an amazing tool for helping us to actually find often signatures that are sort of buried in data. And so a lot of our data are just sort of wiggly line plots. We get excited about wiggly line plots, by the way, but sometimes you see the wiggles and you miss a signal in there. And by using artificial intelligence, we can often find signatures. So one example we've had is to be able to find signatures of superstorms using very old data that really is before sort of like routine scientific satellite data, and it's amazing. And so just being able to use those techniques often can allow us to find things, to actually find the needle. As David so eloquently said, once you've actually really it also helps us to really characterize the hay. And so you can start subtracting the hay and look for the needles behind.
Damn it. So let me just take this moment to try to demystify AI and ML.
Thank you.
When,
please,
as scientists,
do
and probably many of you in high school were trained to do this, we had some data. You took your data, you drew a graph, you put a line through it. You had data in 2 dimensions, X and Y. Right now, much of our data is in a much higher dimensional space. And if you're working with something like ChatGPT, it's in a high dimensional space of language, or tokens, if you want to get technical, with 12,000 tokens in the ChatGPT 3.5, for example. And machine learning is a powerful tool for representing functions in high dimensional space. That means we get to work with data in a high dimensional space. AI is very powerful, but it's no more powerful than the data you give it. It's a way of, this is why it's very powerful, say, with NASA's weather and climate data. We've got an incredible amount of data.
Oh yeah, weather and climate.
And it's data that you want to do more with than just put a line on a graph. You want to extract all that information or more information in that high dimensional space. And I think we're just really discovering the power of that tool. And it's one of the tools NASA and not just scientists, but I think a lot of people in a lot of different industries are using to learn new things about
everything
high
he's saying has
data.
just kind of slid
But
out of my ear hole.
It
and just
always
been like,
comes
I don't
back
remember
to
the
the
thing he's
data
talking
you
about,
feed
what
into
point he's getting to.
your analysis, whether it's a line on a graph paper or a high dimensional space explored with machine learning. And if you don't got good data, you're not going to learn things.
I'm going to add one sentence. Sorry. High dimensional does not mean high space dimensions, not interdimensional travel. We're talking about multiple parameters here. Okay.
Wait, what?
Great. We are coming close
Hold
to
up,
time.
that's
I want to
really
get 2 more
freaking
questions, and we're going to
specific.
do one on the phone and one more in the room. And hopefully, if we keep our questions short and our answers short, we'll get to those 2. For anybody who's here who hasn't had a chance to ask a question, you are more than welcome to send an email, and we will try to get you questions answers as quickly as possible. So one more on the phone, please.
Yes, our next question comes from Peggy Holliger with Financial Times. Your line is open.
Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to ask a question. I'm curious about you saying here that you want to rope in crowdsourcing, but also you speak specifically about the potential of using commercial assets as well as your own. I'm curious about, can you just give me a bit more detail how you will do that? Will that be through commercial contracts, or will you ask for voluntary reportings of sightings? And also, I think that's when you talk a lot about the importance of sensor, I'm going to use the word harmonization, because there's no kind of harmonization between the way the sensors work. Presumably, that would be the same for the use of commercial assets. How does that use of commercial assets and crowdsourcing square with the sensor harmonization that you talk about? And who's going to pay for all this? Thank you.
So let me just say a little bit about crowdsourcing. Much of what we have in mind is taking advantage of the fact that there's several billion of these floating
Crowdsourcing,
around.
also known as
Right, and they
taxpayer-funded.
I'm holding up a cell phone for those on the radio. They take wonderful, high-quality images, have high-quality metadata, record local magnetic field, sound, gravitational field. There's a wealth of data that a cell phone takes, and you can imagine designing apps that make the images relatively tamper-free. You can at least make it hard to do. And I think if we have a collection where interesting events are collected by citizens hosted and you have multiple images of the same event, we will be able to learn a lot. And, one of the things NASA supports is citizen science. And I think that the idea that if you see something you don't understand, collect data, we aggregate the data and we learn from it, is important in this context, and just, I think, in some ways, an opportunity to engage the broader public in doing science.
Great. Our last question, please, from the floor.
Thank you all for doing this. Joe Khalil with News Nation. My first question is, you've described harassment of some of the
News
panelists. While that is horrible and never a good thing, it does sort of come with the nature of public officials. Mr. Nelson, as senator, lawmakers get that kind of thing all the time. Is that the justification for keeping this new position, director of UAP research, private? Do you plan on doing that forever? Is that a temporary thing? Because it seems to cut against the dedication to being open and transparent if this person forever is not going to be revealed, their identity, who they are.
Yeah, okay. So at the time, yes,
I'll be right
we
back,
are withholding that name. Let's not forget that we've only just received this report. And what we need to do now as an agency is come together and provide a cohesive and coherent response to it that addresses multiple findings and recommendations, okay? We're only announcing initial actions today. Will that person's name be disclosed, to answer your specific question? Potentially, yes. But again, we need to ensure that the scientific process and method is free, okay? That's my response.
Thank you. And just lastly, the report says that you relied on unclassified material. You've given a very understandable description for why the DoD classifies certain images and videos. Why did you all not have access to classified material, and could you have, done that?
I have. So just understand that. Let the committee speak for themselves.
So one of the reasons that we restricted ourselves, this study, to unclassified data is because we can speak openly about it. And in so doing, we're aiming, again, to alter the discourse from sensationalism to science, as Administrator Nelson beautifully said. NASA personnel, as appropriate, know how to talk to DoD on a classified basis, but the purpose of this study was to tell us what open data we could use in combination with the power of science to move our understanding forward. Okay? That was the purpose, and we're speaking about it openly today.
And so one of the challenges
And I'm afraid we do have to wrap up. We are at time. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. Again, for those people who were not able to get questions, I do apologize for not doing it in the room. However, please send an email based on our press release. You will have information to access, and we will try to get you the answers we can. And with that, we're concluding today's press briefing, and thank you very much for being here.
So their entire, wow, so NASA's entire whole big thing about this whole report turns out to be just a big fart in the wind. Great. Oh, for fuck's sake. Where do I start?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Sort your fucking life out, mate.
I don't even know what else to say about that. Just like, what the fuck? A stinky fart in the wind, or We are at a time we learned that we learned nothing. Yeah. So real quick, I do want to address this. I mentioned it briefly, but yeah. So the fake Nazca bodies hoax has been conclusively debunked 2 years ago. It was put forward by a UFO crankpot grifter. Yes, I covered that last night. I did talk about it on my stream from yesterday. That would be Edge of Reality episode 18. And yeah, we covered that at length. So if you want to, go check that one out. That will kind of give you all the information you need to know on what that is and what happened there. But yeah. Anyway. Or is it like a plane crash story from Mallrats? I don't know. Yikes. So, well, that was a giant nothing burger. So I guess at this point we do have, there is something more that we can discuss, because I do want to mention it. And yes, it was something that they brought up in their little spiel there. Let me go ahead and bring it up here, because I think I closed it out. There it is. All right. So, something that they mentioned in their in this report, something that I think needs to be addressed. Hey, what's up, Corn Pope? Is they mentioned very specifically the Go Fast video. And so for those who don't know what the Go Fast video is, let me go ahead and also pull that one up. So this was the video that they actually used to say that, oh, well, all these UAP stories, we can debunk these and whatnot, and here's what it is. So let me go ahead and let's talk about that here. All right, there we go. All right, present. All right, so this is the Go Fast video that they talk about in the NASA report. So what you're going to see is an object come in from diagonally through here. They're going to try and box the target with their targeting box, so that way they can try and get a passive track on the object. So you see an object flying over the surface of the water.
Echo 6-1, Tango, object on it. Roger, they're troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow.
Yours is flying a very straight line. Okay. And let me click here. Quit doing that. All right. So here's something that I need to kind of point out here. So you have this object that's flying across the water, apparently. Now you notice that it's flying at a very straight line. Doesn't appear to have any kind of exhaust plumes or any kind of rotor wash or anything like that. It's flying. And also notice down here, this right here says 25,000. That's their altimeter. It says they are at 25,000 feet. So, okay. Beefcakes in uniform. Thank you, guys. Okay. So, yeah, this is the... this down here is... Come on. Yeah, that's where their altitude is. So they're looking down from 25,000 feet, and they see an object zooming across the surface of the water. Now, from 25,000 feet, that object would probably be, I'm just going to take a wild guess at the size based on distance and everything, from 25,000 feet looking down. And I mean, up here you have the Z110. That means that they're at 1x magnification. So that means they're just looking at it without any zoom on their camera. And, you know, it's this good sized dot. I mean, which that from that distance, I mean, a fighter jet would look like a dot in the sky if you were looking up at it and it was at 25,000 feet. Just saying, something about the size of a fighter jet, maybe. But again, no exhaust. And what's really telling, to me anyway, is when they switch to the thermal. At some point here, he switches from the black and white to thermal. There, thermal. Uh-oh, we got an incoming Vices raid. Hot damn. Thank you, Jason J. Fantastic. So that is kind of, so we see this right here. We see that this object is, you know, this is on white hot, or sorry, yeah, on white hot mode. So this object is black, which means there's no heat coming off of this thing, like, at all. It's cold. The water temperature, I've got to find it. I have been digging all over the internet for it. There is actually somebody I saw of the video. He's actually a FLIR pod technician. He's a guy who works on these FLIR pods that are on these jets. He knows what the footage says. He works with analyzing the footage. And the way that he explained it on the video, and I've got to find this thing, is that the water temperature, according to him, is about 65 degrees. This object is colder than 65 degrees, but yet it's hauling ass. Now, according to the NASA report, mind you, the NASA report calls all of this into question. At least they want to anyway. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing on that. And we're going to share this window. Okay. This is the NASA report. So yeah, this is NASA's actual report that just dropped. So yeah, here's all of the accreditations and everything. So let's see, let me zoom in a little bit. I'm bigging it for everybody to read. All right, we're just going to scroll on down. I love also how they mention the Middle East, like the Mosul orb. Only problem is they didn't use the right footage. Yeah. Talk about that at some point, maybe. Let me zoom out. All right, where is the Go Fast? I saw it in here earlier when we were looking through it. There it is. So this is their analysis of the Go Fast video. All right. Jason J says, question, if a basically black cold, would it be considered sub-zero temperature? Could possibly be. Hey, Rose. Oh, welcome, Vice Squad. Awesome. I see folks filing in. Thank you so much there, Jeff, for going ahead and sending folks my way. I greatly appreciate it. And I say this is really cool. I actually quite enjoy this. All right. So, as we see there, all right, let's just read what they have to say. A well-known UAP event is the Go Fast video recorded by Navy aviators from the USS Theodore Roosevelt. A still frame from this video is shown in the figure below, where the infrared camera has locked onto a small object at the center. The video gives an impression of the object skimming above the ocean at great velocity, but analysis of the numerical information on the display reveals a less extraordinary interpretation. Sure. Okay. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Oh. What's all this about? Oh, we're talking about the, oh boy, here they come. Holy moly. Howdy do, everybody. Good to see you. So, what? It's like, I want to go ahead and, oh, what's up, Jeff? Right. Awesome. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much to you, Jeff, for redirecting everybody over here. This is really cool. I'm enjoying this. And, all right. Awesome. Y'all are so cool. Like, I cannot, wow. I cannot really express how awesome this is. I really appreciate it, everybody. So, this is really interesting. So, to kind of catch everybody up, I said everybody's jumping in now. So, this morning, NASA held their UAP report. So, essentially, it was kind of a way for them to drop the report that they've been apparently working on for months and tell everybody what their findings are. So, as everybody who was paying attention could kind of figure out from the get-go, this is actually, I mean, yeah, we already knew where this was going. It's a giant grift for more money. It's NASA sitting there saying, yep, we found nothing. We don't actually have any proof of UAPs or any kind of, any kind of anomalous vehicles, UFOs. We have no evidence of that. And so we just want you to send us more money so that way we can fund more stuff to go look for them. And we also want to use AI because apparently nobody has ever seen Terminator or 2001: A Space Odyssey, or name any movie with an artificial intelligence that goes rogue. Oh, awesome. Thank you, KT. And so, yeah, definitely don't forget to go down there, like, and subscribe. Anyway, so great success. Is NASA claiming they found proof of life forms on other planets again? Nope, exactly the opposite. They're literally trying to take a crap on anybody who says that they might have had an experience at some point or another. So, yeah. So what we're talking about right now is that in the report that NASA sent, one of the videos that was released by the Pentagon in 2017 that says, hey, we see these things. These were captured by our film captured by our Navy pilots. We don't know what they are, and they have capabilities that far outstrip all of our stuff. NASA has now reversed course and decided to say, oh, well, this Go Fast video, here, we're going to debunk it for you. So, yeah. Just so we can get everybody who has just joined us on the same page, let's go back to the Go Fast video so that way you all can see exactly what it is. So, this is the Go Fast video. This was captured by F-18 pilots off the coast of, I believe, Jacksonville, Florida in 2015. And one of the commanders of this flight of F-18s, I believe, was pilot Ryan Graves, who was actually at the UAP conference in Washington, D.C. only a couple months ago. So here's the video in its unredacted form. So you see the object is just flying. They're trying to get a track on the target.
Nickel 6-1, Tango, Roger, oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting. Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly!
So yeah, again, they're watching this thing skim over the water. They don't know what it is. And another thing that needs to be mentioned here, as I mentioned earlier on there, is the temperature. Here's why. And you see it switch from TV to IR here in a second. See a white object with a dark background and then suddenly swaps. This is in thermal right now. This is forward-looking infrared, or FLIR. And so you notice that, according to this, the here's the zoom. Zoom level is at 1x zoom. So this is if you're at 1x zoom, then you're just at basically your eye level. It's just like you're looking down on the object with your own eye. It's not zoomed at any level of like actual like magnification. Also notice here 25,000. They're flying at 25,000 feet. So that is, that is corroborated also in the NASA report. So let me go ahead and just kind of explain that here. So they say 25,000 feet. Now it's in IR mode. Say DCLIR. All right. And then they're saying range 3.9 kilometers. So yeah, that's about, that would track. So you're looking at an object that's flying over the surface, and you're looking at it from the cockpit of a fighter jet that's looking down on this object. That's got to be at least about the size of a fighter jet, you would have to imagine. So I'm just saying. But you also notice that there's no exhaust plume, there's no rotor wash, and also you notice that it's black right now. This is on white hot mode, so the water temperature down here, the water is warmer than the craft. The craft is black because it's not making any heat. King Bob says, what one is their speed? That is one thing we're going to try and determine there, because I think, according to the pilots, they were not able to really determine speed, but it was fast. For the fact that this is traveling over the water at the speed that it is, to be able to, kind of look down on this from 25,000 feet, that's fast. Yeah, no hot exhaust. So it's not a jet. It's clearly flying too fast to be a bird. Yeah. So many questions here, and then NASA decides that they're going to go ahead and debunk this, and they're instead going to provide their own explanation in the report. So that's what we're going to get into with this, because they use this as a debunking opportunity. So we're just going to read it. A well-known UAP event is the Go Fast video recorded by Navy aviators from the USS Theodore Roosevelt. A still frame from the video is shown in the figure below, where the infrared camera has locked onto a small object in the center. The video gives an impression of the object skimming above the ocean at great velocity, but analysis of the numerical information on the data reveals a less extraordinary interpretation. Hey, what's up, Chandler? Good to see you. So, according to them, they're saying, like, here's where the jet is, and the object, they're saying about 3.8 miles of distance at between 13,000 and 25,000 feet. So they're saying that this object is actually much higher up, but it doesn't actually really appear that way. And then they're trying to call out all the different things that are on the display, trying to explain the object's flight path, the jet's flight path. So the circled numbers of the image provide the information needed to estimate the object's altitude and velocity. This information includes 1, elevation angle of the camera, negative downward, 2, azimuth angle of camera, 3, target range in nautical miles, 4, the aircraft's altitude in feet, 5, real as a time reference in seconds, and 6, indicated airspeed in knots. Using items 1, 3, and 4, plus a bit of trigonometry, we calculate that the object is at an altitude of 13,000 feet and 4.2 miles from the ocean behind it. See the middle panel. Given that the aircraft's ground speed is about 435 miles an hour, we may conclude that the impression of rapid motion is at least partly due to the high velocity of the sensor, coupled with the parallax effect. Okay, now pause on that. All right. So do you see anything? Can you point out the thing what they were talking about is? Okay. So it's right here in the center of it's boxed here on this image. It's kind of hard to see, but it's basically just this little white dot. Now, here's the thing. For those who may not know how these jets actually operate, I've done my own research. I've talked to some folks that actually are very well versed on this. Yeah, why is NASA debunking this and not the Air Force? Well, there's your answer. Exactly. So what's interesting is that the way that these camera pods, they actually work, he's got a positive track on the object. And he's getting radar range. He's getting telemetry data on ranging from how far it is from them to the object. So they're 3.4 nautical miles from this, and they're flying at 25,000 feet at about 400 and I was like, yeah, what was the airspeed? They said about 435 miles an hour, which is, about 400 knots. So here's the question. How do we know that this thing is allegedly at 13,000 feet? We don't. And I'll tell you, here's something that kind of debunks that question. This camera system is designed to lock onto the object, stare at it, get ranging on it so it knows where it is. This thing is saying that it's that it's just skimming over the top of the ocean. And again, skimming over the top of the ocean from the range there. I mean, we're looking at this. The numbers are right in front of you, but they're trying to pull a little bit of trick math on you. Yeah, this is just, it's kind of sad, really. Come on, zoom out. There we go. All right. We can use other information on the display to place some limits on the true velocity of the object. The analysis is summarized in the right-hand panel, which depicts an overhead view of an encounter during a 22-second interval. The jet was banking left at about 15 degrees during this time, which corresponds to an approximate turning radius of 16 kilometers. We know the range and bearing of the object as the start, t equals 0 at seconds, and end, t equals 22 seconds times. Using the calculated true airspeed, TAS, and a bit more trigonometry, we find that the object moved about 390 meters during its 22-second interval, which corresponds to an average speed of 40 miles an hour. This is the typical wind speed at 13,000 feet. Again, they're not really proving that this thing is at 13,000 feet or not. They're just saying that it's at 13,000 feet. They're completely ignoring the fact that this thing is literally looking right at it. Our calculation has neglected wind effects on the aircraft, no shit. And thus there is an uncertainty about its result, but the analysis reveals that the object need not be moving at an extraordinary velocity. Note that the object appears bright against the dark ocean for these display settings and indicates that the object is colder than the ocean. There is thus no evidence of heat produced by a propulsion system. This further supports conjecture that the object is most likely drifting in the wind. The availability of additional data would enable a more firm conclusion about the nature of the object. So they're literally saying, yeah, we don't really know, but we're going to use trigonometry and okay, yeah. KT, I love that. Using some trigonometry. Yeah, I don't know how many people out there are, experts in trig, but I will tell you one thing. The average layman on the street does not really know trig. So they're just using a bunch of junk terminology is what I can really tell you. Yeah. Trust us, we use trig. Or trust us on the trig we use. Yeah. Alan says, I've got UFO footage, but I wouldn't know where to send it to you, Kaiser. Alan, I will get with you on Discord because I have you on Discord, and I will go ahead and send that to you. I do have an email box that you can send that, or yeah, we can figure that out. But yes, I definitely want to see that. Totally not pause, and it's like pause, earthly racer. If it were really at 13,000 feet and the camera thought it was at sea level, then it wouldn't be in focus at all. Ding, 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 ding. Yep. King Bob, I'm lucky I know basic math. I hear you. Ghost Ray, I was fluent in trig, but I haven't used it since forever. Exact. Yeah. Yeah, so in other words, we can't explain how we actually came up with the numbers. Exactly, KT. They don't bother to actually explain their math. They just say, yeah, we've already settled it. Trust the science. Trust the science, because, you should trust the science. Always trust the science, because I am the science. Oh, for fuck's sake, it's fucking government as always. Anyway, so again, that is how they use this, the go fast, and they try and use that to explain away literally all of the UAP, phenomenon. But they also forget that there were more videos released in that. There was more videos than just that one released with the Pentagon's initial. With the Pentagon's initial press release in 2017. Let me actually go ahead and find some for you, because I'm telling you, at least one of those videos, in particular the gimbal footage, will likely blow your mind, because I can tell you they very specifically chose one of the three that were released in the New York Times in December 16th, 2017. But they didn't mention this one, which was in the same article. Let's see there. All right, here it is. And we'll kind of go back and forth through this one. I definitely want you all to be able to understand this with me. So this is the gimbal footage. And yes, this was released through the Pentagon, which they won't tell you that actually Chris Mellon actually is the one who walked this out through the front doors of the Pentagon. But they said, oh, well, we just declassified it. Yeah, because he let it out. Thank you, Shenny. Say, remembering to like on both devices. Thinking, lots of thinking this morning. Love you. Awesome. Thank you so much, Shenny. Wait, nobody said there's going to be math. I'm out.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
That's funny. All right. There we go. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play the gimbal footage. Now, this is currently in black and white TV mode. So right now, what you're seeing is pretty much black and white TV mode from the camera perspective on the F-18. They have a much higher resolution than what's being shown here, but there's a whole thing about that. The government tapes are much higher resolution. This is just what they can get out.
Dude, there's a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Except there's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. This is something that Ryan Graves has brought up multiple times, is that there is an aircraft situational awareness page that they have. It's radar that only the pilots can see. David Fravor has also mentioned this. He says the radar tapes from these encounters are always missing mysteriously. Why is it the footage isn't classified, but the radar tapes are classified?
My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Watch this thing. It's going to start doing something really weird.
That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like look at that thing. It's rotating.
It's rotating. Yes. It's sitting perfectly stationary and it begins to rotate. Benny Turkov, there are no aliens. I don't know why people are so obsessed with random blurry video. I think that there is other life in the universe. I think just based on the Drake equation, and I mean, my own experience was looking up at the sky in the middle of the night in the desert years and years ago, looking at all the stars in the sky, and I had this epiphany that I'm like, the sheer statistical chance that we are alone in this universe is staggeringly hard to wrap my mind around. There is no way with all of that we are the only game in town. There's no way with all those numbers and all those statistical possibilities out there that the humanity could be the only or the Earth would be the only planet that has life on it. My opinion. Totally not Papa's earthly eraser, because you can be convinced to not believe your lying eyes, but it's pretty hard to convince a radar signal isn't real. Exactly. Corn Pope says, meanwhile, the Chinese are just effing with us to making alien looking shit to screw with us and spy on us. I don't know. Yeah, I honestly don't think that it's China. And there's a lot of, former Navy pilots that have also kind of have stated to that effect. Mexican Vader, what's going on, bub? Insert Bob Lazar's description of extraterrestrial craft movement here. Yes. And I believe I needed to go ahead and do that at some point and just really go through an entire thing on Bob Lazar. But yeah. Anyway, let's watch this video again. Let me kind of explain a few things here. So let's go back to the beginning. So again, looking at this, we're at 25,000 feet. So 25,010 feet. And so all the sensors of the aircraft are currently what they call slaved, which all means that they are all looking at this one object. The object is boxed. The aircraft is in a bank. And they're at 2x zoom on the camera. And so here's what's interesting. Listen to what they're saying.
Dude, there's a fucking drone, bro.
I think it's a drone.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
But there's a whole fleet of them on the ASA. Here's what's real. Watch this.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
They're all going against the wind. The wind is 120 knots from the west. So at 25,000 feet, this thing is sitting stationary. 25,000 feet. This thing is sitting stationary in a 120 knot westerly wind. What is 120 knots? 2 miles per hour. 138.094 miles per hour. So this thing is at 25,000 feet and is sitting stationary in basically 140 knot winds with no exhaust, no exhaust plume, no rotor wash. It's just sitting there. And according to Ryan Graves, this thing was possibly hanging out for upwards of 11 hours, sitting there, stationary, picked up on radar, and they'd scrambled fighters to go take a look at it and go find out what it was. And again, this is on the thermal footage now. You see how they switched to thermal? There's, again, no heat from this. The surrounding sky is actually warmer than the craft itself. And you see this odd halo around it. Interesting.
That's not LNS though, is it? It's not. That is LNS, dude. Well, if
I'm saying it's not one of theirs. And now they're watching it rotate.
It's rotating.
It rotates on its side. And I think that I might have it here. I really need to just clip this once and for all. Okay. I'm just going to try and pull this up on my end. Pardon me. Okay, let me go ahead and pull this up here. All right, so this is actually Bob Lazar talking about his time working at S4, supposedly reverse engineering these type of craft that were found by the United States.
I was out there for one test. Right, in fact, I was with Barry in the lab, and Dennis came in and said, we're about to run a test. Why don't you guys come out? Or I think he said, Barry, why don't you come out here and bring Bob with you? We went out there, and the craft was already outside the hangar and was just preparing to lift off. Now, they were in communication with somebody in the craft.
So there was a person in the craft?
Yeah, there was certainly a person in there. Now, it's not a comfortable place to be in because it's small. So the guy has to be sitting on the floor in the middle, my best guess.
And this is the same specific craft that you worked on? Because that was the only craft that you were in.
The only one that I touched and worked on. And it quietly lifted off the ground, which was incredibly impressive to see.
Quietly or silently?
Well, quietly, because Did
it make some sort of a noise?
It produced a little corona discharge from the bottom. A corona discharge is kind of a high voltage brush, little bluish glow discharge. As it was lifting off the ground, you can hear a slight hiss sound. Now, as soon as it cleared the ground by about 5 or 10 feet, maybe even less than that, the hissing stopped and the blue glow disappeared. So it lifted off quietly and then it hovered silently, if you want to be specific.
Wow. So then what kind of maneuvers was it doing?
It took for that particular time, it took off, moved a little around to the left and right, and then sat back down. The craft itself, they communicated with it with because I saw the guy talking in a regular VHF radio to the person in the craft, and I even saw the frequency that was on the frequency counter of the communication, the transceiver.
He's going to kind of explain that.
But what's weird is
that shouldn't be
he shouldn't be able to communicate with the craft with a radio. The radio wave should bend around the craft. I mean, it shouldn't be possible. Every single thing about the craft and the way they operated didn't make any sense to us. I mean, that.
So what he's going to explain here, and I have to pause briefly because YouTube. So what he's going to explain here is kind of that the way that the craft operates, according to Bob Lazar, it operates on a reactor that this reactor produces gravity. It creates a bubble of gravity around the craft, and supposedly, allegedly, that's how it moves the craft. Now, the reactor, the way that he explains it is that the way it flies is that it does not actually move the craft. The craft moves space around it. That's actually pretty wild, because that would be one way to defeat the whole, that would be one way to actually get to the speed of light and basically fly a giant one-finger salute to Einstein's theory of relativity.
That's something we talked about for a while after.
Why should the frequency bend around the craft?
Well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. There's the reactor's in the center, and there's a waveguide that goes up to the top. There's actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft, and it produces a heart. The radio wave should bend around the craft. I mean, it shouldn't be possible. Every single thing about the craft and the way they operated didn't make any sense to us. I mean, that's something we talked about for a while.
And King Bob mentions Bob also has a business that anyone can go into. Don't remember its name. It's called United Nuclear. So yes, he does own a business. He is a scientist. He's a brilliant guy. He's an engineer. He's a physicist. He does a lot of work with, he loves science. So yeah, you can go actually to his store, his site. I believe it's it is United Nuclear, and you can even find him on Instagram at United Nuclear Bob. And yes, so basically it works like basically a kind of like a warp drive. Yep. There you go. He's very much a Sheldon.
After.
Why should the frequency bend around the craft?
Well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. There's the reactor's in the center, and there's a waveguide that goes up to the top. There's actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft, and it produces a heart-shaped gravitational distortion around the craft. Now, if the craft is sitting in the air and you walk underneath it and look up, you actually cannot see the craft. The light bends around it. You're bending gravity, bends light. It bends radio waves. It shouldn't be possible to communicate with a craft that has an envelope around it that's distorting all forms of energy. But they were apparently in contact with it.
Somehow or another, through some unexplained way.
So what he's talking about here, what Bob is saying, is that this is actually a drawing that Bob Lazar did of the craft he supposedly worked on. So it has these archways that can become transparent. You have 3 gravity amplifier things that are below the craft. He kind of says it looks like a trash can. Those are underneath the craft. And those can be aimed wherever the craft wants to go. And then, of course, there is this waveguide rod. And now it creates this heart-shaped gravitational distortion around the craft. So as he says, if you're standing underneath this thing, and you're looking up at it, it bends light around the craft, so you can't actually see the craft, which means This is exactly the way a black hole operates. Black holes are a major concentration of gravity. And unlike the Hollywood representation of black holes, a black hole just looks like a big distorted bubble of everything around it in space. And there's actually a really good version of what this looks like in, of all places, a video game called Elite Dangerous. Let me go ahead and see here. See if I can pull it up here. All right, here we go. So that would be what a black hole in space would actually look like. It's just this bubble of distorted gravity. It just kind of, it reflects like a mirror. It's weird. So that's kind of an explanation of what a black hole would look like and how this thing would bend light around it. This is all the stuff that Bob has been talking about since 1989 when he first came forward with his story. That is worth noting. His story has not changed in over 30 years. He has not made a dime off of his story. In fact, he doesn't even like to talk about it. Oh, good day, Joe Troy. I kind of get this, though. Awesome. I'm glad I'm not losing anybody there. So that's kind of the brief explanation of that. But what Bob later gets on to discuss is that the way that the craft flies towards something, when it is going toward an object, when it actually goes toward its destination, the craft will rotate on its side. It will aim these three gravity amplifiers at its target and then fly belly first. It will fly belly first toward its craft or toward its destination, completely ignoring aerodynamics and physics and every other rule that we possibly understand and the way we understand it. Just got a Rumble notification that Kaiser started streaming. Yeah, it's not like I've been streaming for over 2 hours now or anything. Nah. Speaking of Rumble, I accidentally dropped my Rumble screen down. Okay, I don't see any comments over there, so. All right. Anyway. Let's see. Mexican Vader says, well, the government ruined every aspect of his life, so I can't blame him for not wanting to tell it. Yeah. And they still believe that he actually stole some element 115, which was the element that he says in its stable form supposedly creates gravity that actually is what powers the craft. Which is interesting because in 2011, they actually were able to use the Large Hadron, or I think it was Large Hadron Collider, or one of those large particle accelerators to create a few atoms, a few molecules, really, of this element 115, observe it for a few nanoseconds, and then it, of course, decayed. But it was enough for them to finally give it a place on the periodic table as moscovium. So now, this thing that Bob has known about since 89, when it was still called element 115, it didn't have a name, now has a name. So now it has a name. The stuff has been proven to exist. And as Bob was working with this theory that that gravity was a wave, just like kind of like sound is. Well, we only actually discovered that gravity is a wave. And that was actually discovered in 2015. So the weird thing is that this guy who the government wants to discredit and call a crackpot, apparently he's been right more times than he's been wrong. That's surprising, really. So, that is kind of where we leave that. So, again, going back to the NASA hearing, I know this has kind of gotten very much off the rails, but I think it was important to explain that to everyone in a bit of a broader context. So, here's the thing. For anybody that has not actually gone ahead or has gone back and been able to watch it yet, I do recommend go back to the beginning of the stream, watch it, go see all the NASA show. It was kind of funny to watch me lose my mind, I will admit. I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy that. So yeah, I will actually go ahead and, for those of you who may not already be there, let me go ahead and take care of this now. So I do also, in addition to all my usual social media, which is up there in the pinned comment, I do also have a Discord server. And in the Discord server, there is a tab for the unexplained. And I will be posting links to all of that here. And that way, everybody can go back. They can see everything. Give me 1 second while I update the link to the Discord because I don't have a permalink yet. Okay. So the Discord link, if I refresh, should be working right now. So if not, I'll post something in the community tab for that way everybody can be able to check that out. But yeah. So as always, folks, if you want to check my sources, if you want to check my information, I do try very hard to make sure that I am posting up where I get my sources, where I get my information, and I want to make sure that I'm bringing you guys the best information possible, as well as the best commentary that I can. So, with all that being said, I appreciate every single one of you out there for coming on over, watching my stream. I appreciate Jeff and Jeff Legal Vices for dropping everybody over to my stream, and that was really cool. I just super appreciate that. And folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. And right now, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I'm going to go ahead and get some work done here at the house, and then I will see you all later. Don't forget, tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing my review of Episode 5 of Star Wars Ahsoka, and we're going to be looking into just how bad that show is. If you want to, definitely go down there, check out my other videos. I have gone ahead and posted some for the day. I got one up just on the current situation with Amber Heard and the fate of the Aquaman movie. Also, covering my recent first interaction with the One Piece series and some other stuff. So thank you all. Appreciate you. Take care. And I will see you all on the next video. Peace.